What's up, guys? Welcome to the AR podcast. My name is Steph Allen, and I am here with Mike Salemi. Mike, how's it going, man?
Dude, it's going so good, man. I'm really excited for this and just honored to be here, man. So I'm excited to chop it up with you.
Let's go. I'm excited too. This is our very first AR podcast, and I'm excited to dive into everything you're doing inside of your coaching business. Man, let's inspire some other coaches while we're at it. So I'm just going to go through some questions, and we're just going to hear about what you got going on, how you're impacting the world, right, through your coaching business. And man, I'm excited to dive in.
Hell yeah, let's do it, baby.
Awesome, bro. Man, talk to us real quick. How long have you been coaching?
So unofficially, since I was 14,
Okay.
it's really what ever since I touched a barbell, I was like, I knew more or less what I wanted to do was support people in health and fitness and wellness. But been a trainer since I was 18, and so just turned 38. So it's been 20 years officially now.
I love it, man. I love it. And when did you first join AR again?
So I joined AR. It was I want to say, I mean, it was definitely, I believe, over a year ago. So yeah, plus or minus a year.
Nice, nice. And we're going to talk about some stuff inside of AR and all the stuff you're doing inside of your business that AR has helped you with. But man, let's start here. Talk to us. Who is your ideal client, and or maybe what do you specialize in?
Well, that's also one of the things I would say like Mike and AR's helped me with is just really identifying who it is I'm here to serve in this phase of life because that's continually shifted and evolved. Truth be told, like as I've shifted. I mean, for the most part, most of my life has been working with coaches and or athletes. And then in the last 5 or so years, it shifted, still doing that work, but it shifted a lot to just to following my heart, which has been supporting men. So there's been a major shift. So now like it's almost 80 to 90% men only from retreats, online programs, etc. And in whatever capacity I'm supporting men, it's really to help them step into more authentic and powerful lives and to do so with alignment and integrity. That's really my major focus today is to do that. And I'll bring in the physical. Like one of my brands is called Men of Movement. So like movement is a big part of how I came into this work, but it's really supporting men on the inner side and the outer side now.
I love that. And I can only guess that that has probably come from a personal transformation inside of your life. Is that fair to say that this path that you're currently on coaching men in this way has come from some transformation in your life?
Yeah, I would say there's been a direct correlation because when I was coaching, especially, and even as an athlete, like I had gotten injured multiple times competing at a high level. And so I think in part that can come with just the nature of the volume and competing, etc. But what I realized is, especially in getting injured multiple times, I was like, man, there is, there not only is, but there has to be more to performance than just the physical. And I started realizing just training volume, how I was feeling, all sorts of stuff was in direct parallel to when I was having relationship challenges or I was having fights with my parents. I worked for a family business for 8 years, which was awesome. And when you live and work with family, like a lot can come up. And I was just noticing, especially through the coaches that I was working with, I was like, oh shit, like, man, me not sleeping all night and holding a lot of that anger towards whoever it is actually correlating to reducing numbers or just feeling more like shit or recovery going down. And so there's definitely much more I could say on that, but it absolutely, to answer your question, it's been so parallel to my life for sure.
I love that. And I think just on the mindset of us as coaches, we're the best person to help the people we are coaching because we've been through the things that they're going through. And so tying that into your business model, I think is just super cool because you know exactly what those people have gone through and you can lead them the most efficiently, right? That's what we want to do as coaches. Is we want to help people shorten the time that they're going through the storm or whatever it might be based off of our experiences. So I love that you're doing that within your coaching business. Is that what you've always started out doing, coaching men in this way, or did you kind of stumble into that again, going off of maybe that transformation you experienced?
You know, it's so the way it happened for me at least was I think this was when I was like so when I was 30 for I was mentioned I've been a coach at least full time or on the side since I was officially since I was 18. In what was it? So when the economy crashed in the whatever it was oh 07, oh 08, etc. So the business that had really supported me in college and all sorts of stuff, working with great coaches, was really my dad's business that he had started. So my dad was a marble and granite layer. So he'd been working just endless hours when I was growing up, didn't see him too much. And then that type of job broke down his body completely. So he had knee surgeries, hip surgeries. And so he had started a business to basically manufacture and make tools for countertops.
Mm.
And so when the economy crashed, it was basically like, Mikey, we need you to come help. And I was like, okay, I dropped everything to be there for the family. And in that business, like, it was awesome because I got to work side by side with my brother and my parents. But what I realized was, for me personally, like, I always knew that I wanted to help people, that I wanted to do exactly what I'm doing now, more or less. But being in an office with fluorescent lights for really, I mean, 6, 7 days a week, for really, there's no hours, in a family business. I just remember I was like, man, I'm just really not meant to sit in front of a computer and do marketing for, the granite tooling business. Like, I knew why I was doing it. Like, it checked a lot of boxes. It was a part of my dream. But once I hit 30, I was like, okay, I really got to step out of this. And so the moment actually came when I decided, because it was a big, like, identity moment for me, because, like, I had been known within whatever circles that are at all familiar with me. Like, I was known in the kettlebell arena, and a few others. And that was like my identity. I was the kettlebell guy. But I also knew there was like so much more to me. I hated being labeled the kettlebell guy.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
don't like, there's so much more that
I
I
have
want to do.
more. Yes. Yeah.
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 So I basically said, I actually went into there's a place here in Northern California called Santa Cruz, which is beautiful. And so I rented basically like a cabin and was just out in the woods. And I was like, I stayed there for 3 days. I was like, I am not fucking leaving here until I've got some clarity of what's next. And so my
Wow.
only objective was to finally allow myself permission to
Mm.
dream. I was like, if the question I asked myself, I was like, if there was no consequences to what I could do or who I ever wanted to be, like, what would I really do? And that was such a scary question for me. And so I just sat and basically I meditated, journaled, and just asked myself the question. I was like, if you could really do anything, and that's like, it's a very deep, confronting question. If you are in that moment when I looked at that, and I was like, three things came out, brother. I was like, well, I want to work with men, because I had been assisting men in different capacities in different retreats and stuff. I was like, man, I get a lot of nourishment here and I'm getting a lot. So I was like, I want to work with men. I wanted to learn the shamanic drum.
Okay.
And then I was like, and I'd always loved Mongolian throat singing, which is another random thing. And I was like, what business do I have? White guy. And I was like, fucking right, dude. I want to learn how to Mongolian throat swing. I want to fucking learn the shamanic drum, and I want to work with men. If there was no consequences here and I could allow myself full permission to dream and go for it. And so I learned the shamanic drum. I did one-on-one lessons for a year on Mongolian throat singing. And then now it's been, I don't know, well over 5 years that I've been leading men's work. All from that retreat, or that time in the woods.
That moment, man. I love that. That is so powerful. So, coaching these men, what would you say your favorite thing is about being a coach?
In part, it's like, well, there's two parts to this. Maybe one is honestly the more selfish part, because like, it really does give me a lot of nourishment, and I get to see so much of myself in other men, and I get to like, it's really like, in many ways it's like a coaching session for myself too, in that regard. So it's like, I get it, because I realize too, in a lot of the, whether it's been retreats or programs that I had attended, like, they're great. But oftentimes when I would go home and we return back to our normal environment, all the patterns, all the same people, it's very hard, or can be hard, to integrate the changes or whatever it is from these experiences. And so I always knew, I was like, man, what do I have to do to keep this work going? Is like, I got to stay in the game. Like, I got to keep surrounding myself with this work. So there is, in part, a selfish component to it, of like, I love it. I get a lot of nourishment. I get to coach people that I fucking love and respect. And then the other half is, especially like, one of the biggest surprises, Steph, was, whether it's been retreats or programs or one-on-ones, has been the letters from the partners.
Mm.
So from wives, etc., when they've written, like, dude, they wouldn't say dude, but they'd be like,
I mean,
you know,
maybe.
it may be how my husband is showing up so much different from my son and daughter.
Mm.
His relationship to food, he's slowing down, he's showing up for meals, he's actually taken responsibility for shit that he never wanted or never could or would in the past. And I was realizing, man, like working with men is actually changing the fabric of the family. And then this is what really hits me and really means a lot is, especially now as a new father, was the generational component. I was like, man, like if this guy is showing up differently for his son and daughter and is, really shifting the patterns of his father and his grandfather, I was like, man, now we're really creating a lineage of change. So that's really like truly, that's probably the deepest or the most meaningful thing is to see how this thing is actually having a generational impact. And then the fact of how much it really does nourish me to stay in the work and to be surrounded by just really inspiring people.
Yeah, man, I love that. That is deep. And I could talk for hours on everything you just said. We're not going to, but I totally could. We might wrap a little bit after this, but man, that is some, and you said the word meaningful. That is some meaningful work. And I love the word you also used was it's generational impact. Like, yeah, it's the here and now, and you get to see these guys, change their lives, and which is awesome. But man, the power of the change, because as men we're the leaders, right? So the power of the change that we go through, the wife or the spouse is experiencing, the kids are also experiencing, and that is changing their trajectory. Man, that's so cool. I love that. Good for you, dude. Good for you. So
Thank you, brother.
as you were starting this process, right, I'm sure you did some kind of research or you looked at some people or some coaches maybe inspired you when it came to coaching and like running your own business. Who was it that you looked up to before you got into coaching? Or maybe who do you look up to now as you're really getting into coaching?
Ooh, it's a good question. I don't. I'm gonna make a statement. I don't think I'm necessarily alone in this, but one of the things I've noticed within me and then trainer friends, and then just working with trainers for a good number of years now, is so many of us love the craft of coaching. And I love it so much. Like to witness improvement and transformation, to see people light up, or to get them out of pain, whatever, help them get themselves out of pain. Awesome. But it took a while until I actually started seeing the gap in terms of I could be really amazing at my craft or get results, but if I don't actually start like if I look behind me and there's not one book on business or on it has been the weakest gap, because it's been like I'm so much more excited about fucking learning about anatomy and training and stuff like that. So some of the best mentors that I've had on either the business side, but I'll start on the training. So Paul Check has been always one of my biggest mentors, and I've been studying his work since I was 17 and then hired him for the rehab. And so we worked really closely, and that he's been a major influence in terms of like if anybody knows anything about him, he's kind of like one of the more OGs in functional fitness. He's an old timer. Like but he's I mean he was Tony Robbins' coach, Kobe's coach. He was the strength consultant for the Bulls when they were in their heyday. But he's also
I thought I knew that. That name sounded familiar.
yeah, but he's very hard to put a thumb on because he's got deep experience, like Danny Way, who broke his neck, the skateboarder.
Mm,
Within a few months, he was winning like a big championship. Like he's been able to make his career around solving medical failures. And I bring him up because he's been the biggest teacher for me, but he's also like a shamanic medicine man. And
okay.
he's got like, so when I was working with him, it was definitely on the physical, but with him, it's like there's no separation between the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical. And so he's just been a major like influence in a really positive way. And I know he's super controversial for a lot of people. And I just always found the way to take what I like. And he's super passionate and to like talk about some. I mean, I think it was in one of the major conferences, major that he was teaching. He got like most controversial speaker. And I
Okay.
respect that. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter and he's got a lot to back it up. And so he was a huge teacher of mine and still is and is a dear friend. Mike Bledsoe is huge. He was a starter of Barbell Shrugged.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so he's been a major influence on the business side for me. I could definitely come up with more, but those are two really big ones, like one major big business one and then one on just life and training.
Yeah. No, it's good to have these people we look up to, we can learn from, we can grow from, because I mean, we can only go so far by ourselves, right? And if we're not surrounding ourselves with guys, girls, whoever it is that are doing the thing we aspire to do, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit. So talking about who you've looked up to, I think it's huge. And I would encourage other coaches, and I'm sure you would echo this, is just like find people you can learn from.
Mm.
Find people who will challenge you. Find people who will, like you said, maybe they're not going to say everything that you agree with, but you can find something in line with their philosophy that will help you become a better coach. And I love how you talked about diversity, right? Not just in the realm of training, but in the realm of business, right? In the realm of personal development. That's how we grow into the coaches that we aspire to be. So, man, I love that for you. So, last question here as we're kind of going through it. Love your story, love what you're doing. I want to know what it was like for you the moment, and you can even kind of speak into this maybe as inspiring other coaches too. How has your business changed when you go? How does your business change when you go all in? When you fully decide, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. This is the direction I want to go, because I think coaches nowadays, there's so many distractions with when it comes to running their business, and I think a lot of coaches just they don't go all in. So talk to us about going all in and maybe how that impacted and changed the trajectory of your business.
I mean, it's probably the single biggest thing that did and has changed the business. And, I know we'll talk a bit about AR. I hope we do. Cause like I didn't even on the mentor side, that was where like growing up mentors. But I mean, Mike Krausen, so I'm with been with AR, and also I did whatever the most immersive like one-on-one immersive coaching with Mike too. So Mike's been a major influence, especially most recently of how I'm approaching stuff and going all in. But so for me, like my son's 2 years old. He just turned two like
Awesome.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I'm the only, and the main financial provider for the family. And so for me, like I would say maybe would have gone like when I had that moment in the woods, like that was an all-in moment that completely changed the trajectory. And these moments will happen different times, like in different moments, but really when he was born. And I think a lot of people have this experience of like when a child's born, like shit gets really real.
It's game. I got three, so I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude. It's crazy. Yeah.
it's and I do think it's part of like the leadership component as a man, like we need responsibility. And that doesn't make it like I'm all for responsibility and that being a major call up for me. And there's really like I don't really give myself another option.
Yeah.
Like what's like they're literally right downstairs right now. And I imagine you're in your home, like my wife and my son, it's like, yeah, it's like there's no option. So like the consequence of me not going big or not going all in or not whatever the stories have been, the imposter syndrome, all the stuff that I've had,
Yeah, we all have. Yeah.
what's the consequence? It's like there's a real ripple effect that affects more people now than just myself. When it was just me,
Mm,
it's a different story. But
right.
now it's like, oh my God, like this really has ramifications if I don't show up and go all in. So I really just look at it like I don't I don't have any other choice and I don't want to have any other choice. So for me, it's definitely a call up and can be really challenging and confronting, but it's also what I signed up for being a father. And again, going back to again, nothing against the family business and it was
Sure.
great for what it was, but I also believe that me finally doing what I'm meant here to do is a blessing. Like it really is. Like, and I told myself when I was in that office, I still remember this happened multiple times. But I said, if when the day comes that I'm able to go all in or I choose to go all in, I will not take one day for granted. And I mean that. And I remember like tears coming down in that office. And so it's like, I get to do this. And I
Yeah.
recognize that not everybody is doing what they love and what they want to do. And so
Facts.
it's the combination of the responsibility that I feel, the call up as a man, and also the privilege that I feel I've been given to be able to do what I love and actually make a generational impact. So it's affected everything, brother.
Yeah, I love that, Mike. That's so good, man. All right, let's shift a little bit real quick as we kind of wrap this up. Let's talk about AR, right? Because ultimately, that's why we're here. From what it sounds like, it's been a game changer for you, right? Inside of your business, as far as probably the back end stuff, the funnel stuff, and just the organization of running your business. I love to tell coaches, I'm like, this is everything you need to run your business. And this really helps you, at least for me, shift from just a coach to I'm a business owner now. And there's everything in here to kind of help me have that mindset going forward. So pre AR, what was maybe one or two hesitations before you joined AR?
I mean, one big one that comes up because I had invested in business coaches and I had like, truth be told, like I'd put a lot of funds and time hiring coaches, taking business courses like multiple times, reading tons of business books the last few years. And so well, the biggest hesitation is like, especially going back to being a new father, especially when I started with AR, it's like, I really got to be mindful
Hmm.
of where every dollar goes. And every dollar, if not used wisely, has a direct impact on my family. And I really feel that deeply. And the biggest one of the bigger challenges for me was again, I was doing fine when I was solo and just, and being with my wife or at that time my girlfriend. But it's living in the Bay Area with a mortgage and all of that. And then now, for the last 3 years since she got pregnant, supporting us fully, it's like, oh man, like I don't want to say I can't fuck up because I still make plenty of mistakes, but there's bigger consequences. So the bigger hesitation was, is this actually going to work? Because there's no quote guarantee in some of this stuff. So it was more like, and then working with Mike, wasn't cheap, super worth it. Especially, I'm happy to say the results on what happened. But I think most of the hesitation was like, okay, man, like it was a big plunge for me to take that in light of where I was and at that point. So that's I would say maybe think of another one, but that was I would say probably the only hesitation and hiring maybe and doing other courses that just really didn't deliver.
Yeah,
So I had a history of stuff
you
like
had that experience.
learned a lot, but there
Yeah.
really wasn't a tremendous or what I would say would oftentimes justify, the larger, what the investment was up front.
Right. Yeah. And we all have those. A lot of coaches, we have the experience, and maybe sometimes those experiences aren't great, which affects the decision at times. But it's like, man, you just never know, right? And it's unfortunate that coaches have poor experiences with what if it's a software or a coaching program, whatever. But it sounds like for you, it's like I'm I'm thankful because we wouldn't be here if you didn't. I'm thankful you took that leap, right? And that'll even lead into this last question here. It's what has been your biggest win. This could be personally running the business, or it could be, business related, or maybe a combination of the two since you've joined AR.
Biggest win, because it's affected every aspect of my life, has been the mindset shift around what having a reoccurring option
Mm.
can do for my nervous system. Like there was when I started getting the one-on-one clients who are on reoccurring, I was like, oh my God. Like I just noticed again how I'm showing up as a husband, as a father, as a friend. I don't think, well, I know now in hindsight, but I didn't realize the emotional and mental bandwidth that was going into constantly feeling like I got to hustle and find that next client or sell that next package. Like there was a major shift once having, because now I have stability.
Hmm.
And given what everything I've just shared of just like, I love being a father and the responsibility, it's like, oh my God, fuck. It's like, it just, it completely changed the state of my nervous system. And I teach this stuff, right? Like the regulation of nervous system, et cetera, like increasing capacity. But I really didn't have an idea of how much like the tone of my nervous system. It's like there was if you view like a dimmer switch in a room, it's like, even if it's 30% on, it's still 30% on, drawing energy, resources, awareness. And I didn't have an understanding, like a visceral understanding until I signed those multiple I think in the first 3.5 weeks, it was 11 clients signed up on reoccurring. And I was like, for me, that was a huge win. And I was like, man, this is possible. Like, not only is this possible, but like, I feel just I didn't even know that I could be this calm and how much it was taken from me.
And was that like reoccurring, epiphany moment? Was that something just for you and your experience in the past, even too? Just the functionality of AR just allowed you to do at a more efficient way, or what was it about the reoccurring, in correlation with AR that was so just helpful for you, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a great question. So two would be the actual software. So like the nuts and the bolts to actually have the tools to
Okay.
execute this. So like the
Yeah.
whole back end system and then, nurturing leads and like the whole system that AR does. So actually having the hardware, I mean,
Mm.
software, but just having
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
that And then also, I value Mike's wisdom a lot. And so hearing it from Mike, so the way I met Mike was I realized that the lead was one of the big missing components to the business. So I have a podcast. And so I had him on because I was researching. I was like, okay, who's super legit out there when it
Yeah.
comes to leads? I
Yeah.
had him on. I was so impressed. And then I talked with him after and I was just like, man, I really want to learn more. And so he, for those 4-ish months that we coached, he was really helpful in being kind of like a corner man for me and really helped me shift my paradigms. Shifting my paradigm and my way of thinking around leads and business was very helpful. And then so having the mindset component was really helpful for me. And then actually having the tools that I could use and marry both of those. So it's like mindset meets
The tangible.
the tangible thing. Because if it was just one, and I'll just be straight up, like if it was maybe I can't say for sure, but if it was just the software, because I had so many mental blocks and past
Mm,
history and all that stuff, I don't know either. I don't say how I would just say it would have taken me a lot longer. It would have taken me a lot longer and I would have gone through a lot more stuff. And I don't know if I potentially would have stuck with it as long as I did or through the crap because I just needed a mindset shift and actually see this is possible.
yeah. Right.
And there's a few things that he would point out that were just great to have someone who that's what he does. Like that's why I hire that's what people hire us as coaches. It's like because hopefully we can see a blind spot that a client can't see. And he pointed out some really big blind spots.
He
And
does that.
so
He
yeah.
does that. He's good at that.
So it's really a combination of those. And I don't know for me personally how far I would have gotten either the results or how long it would have taken if I didn't have the buy-in on both.
Yeah, I love that. We got time for one more. Let's squeeze one in real quick. What would you say to the coach that it doesn't have these back end systems and funnels and how to collect leads, right? Have a place for leads to go and how to nurture leads. What would you say to that coach who's running that right now, running that play inside of their business that they're missing out on? What would you say to them?
I mean, if I was even I would say this to them and I was just picturing like myself, like what would I say to myself personally? And I would say I would say to myself, bro, like you don't know what you don't know. That would be
Yeah,
if I was
right.
talking to myself.
Yeah,
But I don't know if I would say it that way, but it's really it's exponential or it has I don't say it is, it has the ability. Like a software by itself ain't gonna do anything unless you use it. Right. So but it does have the ability and provide the opportunity to scale exponentially, get yourself organized, and really integrate all aspects of business in one place. Because you said, I think in the earlier part of the podcast with men, and I would say this all people, but we're so distracted. Like just simply slowing down is one of the hardest things to do, but also one of the most therapeutic and I do think having it like a software like AR allows a business in the best of ways to speed up, but in also the best of ways to even slow down. So now you've got more free time to be with family, like you're more organized, you're not using 10 softwares.
right.
You can follow up with leads. I'm not letting stuff pass by, the follow-up. So it allows me to do what I'm really here to do is coach. I'm here to build relationships and coach. So it made me a better coach too
Mm, I love
because I
that.
just had more bandwidth and more time and more hours to go to that, or not. If I wanted to just dip out and be with family, I could do that too.
Yep, and you got everything running like it's supposed to. So, man, that's awesome. Well, Mike, man, it has been a pleasure hanging out, hearing your story, hearing what you're doing. Thank you so much for taking time. And yeah, that's all we got. So we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you, everybody, for listening.